Good morning, lovely friends. How are you all today? I hope you're well. We're at the end of January. We're at the end of month 33. Is it month 33? I think it is. I can't believe it's nearly 3 years. Wowzers. This month has been ridiculous. Obviously, I was mentioning it in the video I made a few days ago when I got back online, both with the computer and video software. I won't go back over that, but in that video I was mentioning sort of problems that were sort of the tech type problems, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. It was literally stuff every day. Waking up to no power, waking up to no heat, waking up to no water, getting no sleep because of roadworks in the middle of the night. Actually, there's some going on right now. I hope it's not going to disturb us too much. Oh, just all sorts, tons and tons of stuff for my great aunt this month. Way more than usual, and hopefully everything I've done, especially in the last few days, is now going to set us back on track to hopefully just a once a week visit, once a week visit, and then maybe during the week 1 or 2 little bits and pieces here or there. But I mean, it's literally been, normally I work 7 days a week doing whatever it is I do. This, in January so far, I would say that I've managed to maybe 1 or 2 days a week of doing my work, i.e. the shop or sewing or video making. So to go from 7 days a week to 2 days a week, it's scary because obviously it's affected my income, but also it's been a month where I've been having to fork out money. It's always the way, isn't it? The times when you're having to fork out money is when you've got the least money coming in. But never mind, I think the worst of January is over. Normally I would post my thoughts on video on the last day of the month. Yay, done. It's going to be February before this goes online, but never mind. Cheers. Check out the mug. It's a Richard and Paul mug. So one of Richard and Paul's catchphrases is, "Thank you, bloody thank you." There's our little bit of Makaton for the day. It's tar to the bra and please to the knees. The guys are looking at doing some merchandise, and they had this mug made up, but they weren't satisfied with it because they're very, very particular. So they've given it to me, and I've just realised that means they've given me their seconds, their cast off. Thanks, chaps, I love it. And my tea today, I brought the packet through with me because I thought I'd mention it quickly. It's a Twinings one called Sleep. Now, I had a really wonderful advent calendar back at the beginning of December from Siggy. And it was a sort of, she'd made it herself. It's hard to describe, but it was a sort of a concertina, a sort of stand-up wiggly snake made in cardboard with little pockets, and each day of Advent there was a tea bag, a different tea bag. Now, I don't drink tea every day, probably have maybe 2 or 3 mugs of tea in an entire week, so I've still got some left. So this one called Sleep. Now, I've been having terrible trouble sleeping recently. What for one reason or another, but just absolutely, it's funny, isn't it? I'm going to be a bit all over the place today, as normal, but those times when you're under the most pressure, under the most stress, and having to deal with myriad problems, why is it that during those periods, that's when you end up not sleeping? So just when you need your rest the most, you don't get it. Yeah, not been going to sleep till sort of 4 or 5 in the morning, and then up again at 7. It's ridiculous. I can't do 3 hours a night. Anyway, this hasn't helped me to sleep. However, it's gorgeous. It contains spiced apple, vanilla, chamomile and passion flowers, and it's really, really yummy. It's a very mellow taste to it, which I guess is what you would want from a cup of tea to help you go to sleep. Anyway, I will enjoy my Richard and Paul since 2017 mug of tea while we chat. So, one of the things with not sleeping... or shall I talk about that first? Yeah, actually, let me mention something else first. One of the really great things this month is that way back at the beginning of December, I think it was the beginning of December, and I think it was on Sunday on the sofa when I was talking about books, and I was saying I'd got out of the habit of reading. I hadn't been making time for it. It's something that I talked about over and over again in other videos. Oh, I really miss it. It's like, well, why don't you just do it then? Make time to do it. So I started to get into a habit of, I try to finish work at 8 in the evening, sometimes 9, but try to finish then, and then just allow myself an hour of reading. It's been great, and you know, I'm so massively in love with reading again. It's not that I fell out of love with reading, but I just fell out of the habit, and I think it's like anything, you know, these things are habit. But now that I am back in that habit, it's so rewarding, it's so wonderfully rewarding. It's relaxing. It's one of those things where now in my brain I'm not thinking, oh, you should be reading, or any of those other nagging thoughts. Just get on and do a bit. I don't read every day. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way, but most days I do, and I'm loving it. And probably in the next Sunday on the sofa, I might mention a couple of books that either I've been reading or I'm about to read, because that seemed to go down well with you guys too. So what I was trying to say about reading was, because I haven't been sleeping, I've been reading a lot in the middle of the night. And there have been a few occasions where I finished a book at 2 in the morning. I don't want to start a new one, because if I start a new book, then I'll be reading all night. So I thought, I'll just read something online, what have you. And I stumbled on something at the beginning of the month. I'd heard mention of it a couple of times before. I can't remember where. I think either in comments on my videos or on my Facebook page, somewhere. And yeah, there was one night I was just kind of Googling and this thing came up. And so I started to read a bit more on the subject over the last few weeks. And it really struck a chord with me. So I thought I'll just chat about it a little bit today, because it might be useful for one of you too. Or hopefully for more than one of you. Excuse me 1 second. So the thing I've been reading about is called decision fatigue. And now I'm sure some of you have heard of that before. Like I said, I'd kind of heard the phrase before, but had no idea what it meant. Well, I had a vague idea of what it meant. It sort of gives it away in the title, doesn't it? But from the reading I've done, it seems to relate mostly to the world of marketing. So I will try and sum up really briefly so that I can then talk about how this is having an impact on me. So, excuse me. So in the world of marketing, we can take, for example, going to the supermarket or buying a new car. When we go to the supermarket, we are bombarded with choices and decisions to be made. We go into the supermarket, we go into the fresh produce section, that's normally the first section we come to. We get to the apples, we think, do we want 4 apples or 6 apples? Oh, what am I doing this week? Do I need a packed lunch every day? Do I need 6? Oh, I'll get 6 apples. Oh, if I buy 8, they're on offer. Do I really need 8? Will I use 8? Is it worth going for the 8 because they're on offer? We get our apples. That's one item. We've gone through myriad choices. we want our baked beans. We go to the baked bean aisle. We're choosing between brands. Is there a preferred brand? The non-preferred brand, that's on offer this week. Is it better to get the non-preferred brand? There's a lot of talk and decision fatigue that relates especially to people on a really low budget, because they're having to make even more decisions because of making money go further. So yeah, then there's that decision of, do I go for the one on offer? Let's say, for example, you're buying something like rice. Do you buy a kilo of rice? Is it more economical to buy a 5 kilo bag of rice? Ooh, what's the use by date on the 5 kilos? Am I going to use it in that time? Oh, have I got the energy to carry home a 5 kilo bag of rice on top of all my other shopping? If I buy the 5 kilo bag of rice, which is a much better deal, that's going to use up some of the money that I was going to spend on, say, buying some olive oil. So if I buy the 5 kilo bag of rice, I don't buy the oil, You get the idea. So for all these items that we're picking off the shelves and putting into our trolley, we're making myriad decisions about them. So the thinking behind this decision fatigue thing is that by the time we get to the checkout or towards finishing the shop, our brain is so exhausted from making all these decisions, it loses its capacity for making the decisions, and we end up chucking God knows what into our trolleys, things we don't even need. We get to the till, to the checkout, and that's where the child pester power, we cave in, the kids are wanting sweets. Now, the checkouts have changed in recent years so that they don't have all the sweets and chocolates, but that's what they used to do, and it was done on purpose. We are so exhausted by the time we get there, the brain bit. We want to reward ourselves, the bright packaging, just chuck it in, what the heck, chuck it in. So that's one result of this decision fatigue. So for example, with the car sales, now this made less sense to me than the supermarket because I'm not into cars, but going to buy a new car, and the salesman is just throwing all these different specs at you, all these different add-ons you can have. You can have this for that, and if you take this, we've got an offer so you can get your rims done for less, and we've got this fancy aircon system, so if you have that installed, you can then get your free radio and so that by the end, you just say, okay, I'll take it all. I'll take it all. Because your brain just can't cope. So the other possibility is that in going to the shop to do your supermarket shop, whatever it is, this is why it's always a good idea to take a list with you, is that all these myriad, now I know it sounds silly, but bear with me, these myriad small decisions, and the more I read about this, the more I wanted to read sort of scientific papers rather than just, apocryphal journalist articles or whatever. And science is showing that this is how our brains work. That one can get to the stage where there are so many decisions to be made that rather than going for all of them, caving in and just going for all of them, the brain, it sort of just turns off and says, I can't make a single decision, so I'm not going to make any decisions whatsoever. So back to the car sales, all these choices of all these extras that can be done and what colour do you want it, that you end up just going, you know what, I can't do this. You walk away, you don't get a car. So why did this ring bells with me? Why did it strike a chord? I think one of the biggest problem I've had in January is just deciding what to do each day, because now a lot of the problems that have come up, some of them I'm having to just respond to and just deal with there and then, particularly those involving my great aunt, because she can't do it for herself, so I have to. And in a way, the decision process is taken out of my hands. It's one of those, I just have to do it. But otherwise, it's a case of, you know, waking up in the morning and let's say, for example, I've planned a day in the garden. So part of my planning process is, what do I want to actually achieve in the garden that day? What am I going to film? How am I going to fit filming in with doing the garden? Well, okay, it might be a day when I want to film what I'm doing in the garden, so that's really handy. Okay, so I know how long it takes me to process a video to get it online. I've got to then factor that bit into the day. So it might be that I've said to myself, a day in the garden, and I've got a good idea of what I want to do. But I wake up and it's raining. So no garden. And you think, well, there we go, decision is out of my hands, that's easy. But then it's a case of, it's hard to explain because it sounds so pathetic and like, ooh, first world problems. And I don't mean it, I'm not meaning this as a, how to describe it, suddenly I've lost my words, that's because I'm tired. Yeah, this is not meant in any way like, oh, feel sorry for me, my life's so difficult. It's not that at all. I'm trying to explain why I think I've been struggling so much in the last, actually it's the last few months, but in particular this month. What do I do each day? I can do sewing. What do I sew? Do I do the bunting? Do I do the lavender bags? Do I do the patchwork? Do I do the cotton shopping bags I'm hoping to do? There's all these things I want to do. Many of them are things I need to do, and I use that word on purpose because I do need to do them because I need to sell them to generate income to pay my bills. So there's all these different sewing choices. And if I do, let's say I'm going to make some bunting, right, is the fabric washed? Is it pressed? No. Okay, so I need to wash and press the fabric. Then I need to cut it. Sometimes it's a case of the day before I've washed and pressed fabric. Actually, I don't know if you can see, but can you see over the back of the chair? This is all quite small scraps that are all washed and pressed and draped. They're small, that's for patchworking. But it might be that by the time everything's washed and pressed, it's really quite late in the day, so I don't want to start cutting. So they end up getting left on the ironing board. And I live in a studio flat, so it's all in one room. So I've got washed, pressed fabric on the ironing board waiting for me to cut. But on the sewing table, I've got the sewing machine out and I've got a different sewing project on the go with that. Or do I think, right, it's a shop day, I'm going to weigh, measure, clean, photograph, upload all my shop stock. Is the light good enough for taking photographs of stock for the shop? I look around the room, I've got all my the majority of my lentils are still to be threshed. I've got a pile of parcels I need to get out. I've got a pile of stuff that needs to go back to the garden. Oh, there's something in the garden that I need at home. I need to get some pots from the garden to bring back here to do my indoor sewings. It's just these, just so many things going around and around and around all the time. That's before I've even gone into the kitchen where my desk is, before I've even turned on the computer. And then it's a case of, right, what do I do? Do I respond to emails, messages, etc., etc.? Do I get on with doing my accounts, which is the thing I was thinking I might do this morning? What I'm trying to get at is, I wake up in the morning, I look around the room, and everywhere I look, there are different jobs to do. And what can happen, or what I've found happening this month, is now I'm normally very good at sort of prioritising and planning, and I've had to be that way over these last 2.5 years. I really have had to be. Why this decision fatigue thing sort of rang bells with me is, I think my brain over January has just had enough. It's sort of like it's gone, I'm closing off, Vivi. I can't cope with everything you're throwing at me every single day. Because if you think about it, this is what I was thinking about to myself. Just taking last year as an example, in the whole year I only had 5 really proper, away from everything, full days off. That's not enough. I'm not giving my brain any break from this continual decision making. And like I say, none of this it's not like life and death, of course not. It's not that kind of adrenaline fueled decision making that I would say I would be making when I was a nurse. It's a slow drip, drip, drip. And I guess it's kind of one of the reasons I want to say this is because if you're thinking of going the route I've gone, going solo, doing everything on your own and trying to be self-reliant, I think it's really, really important to factor time in where you're not having to make decisions, you're not having to be responsible for every second of every day of your existence. It's too much. So, like I said, when I was talking about the car dealership thing of you have all this stuff thrown at you and you get to the end and you say, oh, I can't cope, I don't want to buy a car. So there have been a couple of days in January where I've just gone, I just can't do this. I've frozen. I've completely frozen. And then, of course, that's awful because then the next day, then I'm sort of beating myself up because the previous day I didn't achieve anything. And it's like, oh. So, what can I learn from that? Because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's like, what can we learn from reflecting on these things? I think for me, it's really obvious. And it's definitely something I've been trying to do it for the last sort of 3 or 4 months or so, before I'd even heard about this decision, a fatigue thing, is to say, on this day, I'm only going to tackle one thing. This is a garden day, or this is a shop day, or this is a video making and editing day. Just have only one thing to think about. So, for example, as a nurse, when I was still a nurse, I'd wake up in the morning, I didn't have any decisions to make, no decisions. I'd have my breakfast, I had the same breakfast all the time, no decisions there. What to wear, no decisions, because it's not like I'm going to be outside in the garden deciding how many layers to put on. I know that sounds silly, but even that's a decision, and the more decisions you're having to make, the more fatigued the brain gets, remember? So I'd get up in the morning, I didn't have to think about or decide what time to get up. It was the same every time. 4:30, get up, have your breakfast, get dressed. Doesn't matter what you get dressed in, because you're going to work and you're going to be wearing a uniform. So get up, have breakfast, make my packed lunch, pack my uniform, go to work, do my day's work, come home. I've not had to make any decisions apart from, of course, my nursing decisions, but making those decisions, that's more often than not, that's shared decision making, which eases the burden. So I come home from my shift, still no decisions to make. I'm going to have a bath, go to bed with my book. Boom. Nice easy day on my brain, as it were. Not saying that a nursing day is easy, but you get my point, that I'm trying to illustrate that when I wake up in the morning, I know exactly what I have to do that day when I was a nurse. Now when I wake up, it's like, oh, what do I do? Which one thing do I do? So, like I say, back to what can I learn from it? Like I say, for months I've been feeling like I need to give each day over to a different thing and not think about all these other things. So since I got the computer up and running and all that working again, it's been a week now. This is what I've been trying to do. Although obviously I've been playing a lot of catch up with various things. But for example, actually, no, I won't, because it's a lot of personal stuff I don't really need to share. Anyway, yeah, so that's how I'm going to try to go forward in order to just give my brain a little bit of a rest, just to make life more simple, because, you know, that's the whole point in a way, isn't it, of what I'm doing, is trying to simplify my life. What's been ironic to me, and it's become more and more obvious as the months have gone by, is my life is way more complicated now than ever it was before. So, look, none of us are perfect. I certainly don't get it right a lot of the time. I think the main thing is to be able to take time out to reflect, to think, okay, why am I struggling? Is there something I can do about this? And I think there is. So we'll see how I get on. But, you know, overall, here we are. We're at the end of January. My food store is great. I'm eating really lovely food. The garden, it's disappointing that I still feel a bit behind in the garden, but it's nothing urgent. It's all fine. Apart from the blimmin' broad beans, pesky mice. I'll re-sow at home. You know, things are ticking along. Things are okay. I'm managing, I'm surviving, I'm keeping myself healthy and well and alive. I just need to give the old grey matter a rest once in a while. So, that's for me going forward. Try to simplify each day. Try to take a load of those decisions out of each day. Just be making a handful of important decisions each day. Stuff the rest of it. You know, something else, I was thinking about this. I've got a friend who, they've got a daughter who, she's on the autistic spectrum, really struggling. She struggles with change. And what they do is they have the same menu that they repeat over 14 days. So they have different food for 14 days and then they repeat that whole menu. And I used to think, oh, how boring and restrictive. But actually, there's a part of me thinks, well, why not? Why not know that on Thursday it's going to be roast stuffed squash, and on Friday it's going to be chilli, and on Saturday it's going to be a curry? That would take some of the decision making away. Yay! And you'd have to change it for the seasons, of course, because obviously the things we eat in winter, we eat different things in the summer. But, you know, maybe that's something I can do, is to say, have a week of set menus and then just do that for the next sort of 2 or 3 months until the food changes with the season. It's another decision made and taken away, isn't it? Might give that a go. We'll see. Not sure. Anyway, now I'm starting to ramble, so just stretch my legs. It's all good. It's all good. It'll all come out in the wash, won't it? Anyway, yeah. January. Bye-bye. You were really naughty. Hello, February. You're going to be good. I will see you all again really soon, I hope. Not sure if it will be in the garden because the weather is rubbish. So much rain. What a wet autumn and winter we've had. Never mind, if I can't get out into the garden and take you there with me, I'll start doing some sewings indoors and keep you here with me. So, for now, it's cheerio. Thank you for hanging out with me today and just reflecting together and letting these ideas permeate. And like I say, I think that will probably strike some chords with you as well. So we can all have a think on it, can't we? And see how we can take away some of these extraneous, unnecessary decisions. Get them gone. Let's have some free brain time. All right, my lovelies, I will see you soon. In the meantime, please take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Cheerio.